Hi everybody, today we are talking about Tokyo Ever After and Tokyo Dreaming by Emiko Jean. So I'm going to go ahead and review both of these books in one, which means there's potential for me to be a little spoilery once I get to the second book because I might have to relate back to something that happened in the first book for it to make sense. But in terms of the first book, I'm not going to go into too many details so that it will be spoiler free for you. And I'll let you know once we get to book 2 if I'm going to go into spoiler territory, but I will try to keep that pretty spoiler free as well. Our story starts with 2 senior high schoolers named Izumi and Nora, and they are best friends, and they are supposed to be doing something, maybe studying, I can't remember exactly what, but Nora, the friend, ends up finding a letter that is addressed to Izumi's mom, and it actually is from a boy, a man that the mom used to date, and it's a really sweet love letter. And Izumi's like, ooh, we probably should not be reading this. This is a personal thing that's my mom's. But at the same time, she is very curious about it because her mother has raised her on her own. There's no dad in the picture, and her mom has been kind of private about what happened between her and Izumi's dad. And so she doesn't know a lot about her dad. She just knows that they met in college, but she didn't really press it because her mom never really wanted to open up about that. So that's kind of our background of the family and how our story really kicks off really quickly. Basically, Nora thinks that if she does a little research into the name that was on this letter and the school, the college that her mom and this guy went to, that maybe she could figure out who this person is and figure out who her dad is. And so the next day, Nora calls a meeting with her and Izumi and a couple of her friends, and Nora reveals that she actually could track down who this was, and that her dad actually is in Japan and is a prince, and that Izumi is a princess, and that they are that she's a royal birth, she's royalty. So this is really big news with Izumi. She doesn't want to believe it at first. She's unsure that it could possibly be true, but she talks to her mom, confronts her mom. She's a little upset when she finds out it is the truth and that her mother kept it from her, but she accepts her mother's explanation. And she decides she's going to try to email somebody who could get in contact with her father, to just say, hey, you have a daughter, it's me, and I just wanted to introduce myself and everything, okay, bye, kind of a thing. And she waits for a long time before she gets a response. She assumes oh, well, he must not really believe me or want to meet me because it's been weeks and haven't heard anything. But it turns out that he absolutely wanted to meet her, and he sent some of his people all the way from Japan to California to pick her up, and hopefully to pick her up if she agrees, and come spend a couple of weeks in Japan so that she can get to know the royal family and him and that side of her family. And so most of this book takes place in Japan because she decides to go, and she has to figure out what it's like to be a princess. She now has a bodyguard, a lady in waiting, everything like that would make sense if you were royalty, all this protection and all this fanciness. And it's really throwing her for a loop because she's never experienced this kind of stuff before. And so naturally she's going to make a lot of mistakes while she's trying to become this perfect princess to make her dad look good and yada yada. And so of course the tabloids are going to be just filling up with all these different things about her every time she makes a mistake and all these things. And so she is experiencing a real Princess Diaries situation. I really think that this is like Princess Diaries in Japan. Like a Japanese version of Princess Diaries is really what this book gives off for me, which is not a bad thing if you like Princess Diaries, and maybe better if you like, the whole Japanese aspect of it and being in Japan. So for me, that would be a yes. That makes it better for me. So we get a lot of the very predictable tropey YA kind of storylines in here, and that is kind of where it lost me a little bit, but not enough to hate the book or anything. But I personally just think maybe I'm getting too old to appreciate these kind of cheesy, predictable storylines. There's just a very clear relationship that you know is going to end up turning into a romantic relationship between Izumi and another person, which I don't want to give away exactly who they are to her in this story, but once you start reading this book, it's pretty obvious that something's gonna happen with this. I just, to me, it was pretty obvious. And so I didn't super care for that choice just because of how, you know, cheesy and predictable it could be. But it kind of grew on me once I got to the second book, and then I was kind of annoyed after that because of reasons I will tell you about once I talk about the second book. But yeah, in terms of the first book, if you like Princess Diaries, if you like Japan, if you like regular girl turned princess, which I guess is just Princess Diaries again, but if you like that kind of idea, then yeah, you're gonna like this book. And yeah, it's really easy to read or listen to like I did, and so it's something that you'll probably get through pretty quickly. And so if you're looking for a kind of a quick read that is enjoyable, then I think this could be something that you would like. Now let's go ahead and move on to the second book, which is Tokyo Dreaming. Alright, so I am going to say just a couple of spoilers real quick about where this story starts, because it's basically where the other story ends. So if you want to skip to this, then it'll go back to being pretty much spoiler free. Okay, but for those of you that don't care. So basically, Izumi and her father, after all the screw-ups that she had in the last book, turns out that he, of course, is a good father and wants her to stay longer, and actually does want to know more about her and let her really give this whole royal thing a chance. And so he basically asks if she could stay, and she does end up going back to California for a little bit before being convinced by her dad to go back. So she graduates from high school and everything in California, and then ends up going back. And so basically, while she's there, she's with this person that she's dating somebody, and I just don't want to say exactly who it is, because it's not, you can still follow along without me telling you that. So then it's not so spoilery. But the two of them are together, and so sweet. Her dad really wants her mom to come and stay in for a while as well. And since she's like a teacher, and since it's summer break, she agrees to come. And so she comes to stay there, and it turns out that the two of them kind of are starting to reconnect and starting to want to try to see if maybe they can make things work again. And so they start dating again. But the tabloids are just saying like, oh, this just doesn't look good on the royal family, to this relationship, and also the relationship that Izumi is in. That's not a good relationship for the royal family. That could never be approved. And so like the royal committee, I can't remember exactly what they're called, but there's like this group of royal people that kind of help make decisions for the royal family of like what is acceptable and what is not. And their relationships are kind of borderline on that, like, this is probably not really good. And so because of this, Izumi's boyfriend says, I think I should just go to school and leave, and I think we should break things off because it's making it harder on your mom and dad being able to be together. But I think one step of them being accepted is if we break off what we are doing, because they don't think our relationship is acceptable. And so that really hurts Izumi a lot. So they do it. They break it off pretty early on in the book. And then we continue on with her trying to work things out with royal family members that she clashed in the first book. A lot of drama stuff kind of happened with some people that were her family members, and has made it extra hard for her. And that's part of the reason she didn't know if she wanted to do this, because she just didn't know if she's cut out for it, and she wasn't getting help from her family that she thought she would get. And because it's hard to accept someone just, that just come, oh, all of a sudden you're part of our family now and you're going to get all this special treatment now, that can be kind of hard to accept. So she's dealing with those things, and she's trying to mend those relationships with some of those family members. And while all this is happening, she happens to see a picture in the tabloids again, the Tokyo Tattler, I think is what it's called. And it's a picture of her last boyfriend with kind of side hugging a girl. And so that makes her feel really bad knowing that he's moved on so quickly. There's this tutor that she's been meeting with to help her more with her language and with all of the things that she's needing to improve on in order to take entrance exams to go into university. She thought maybe she would take a year off, but then she started having second thoughts, because in the royal family you don't do that, you just go straight to college. So there's that pressure there. And so they got her a tutor to help her prepare for these exams to even see if she could be accepted into certain colleges like Tokyo University. And so the more she gets to know this tutor, who's around her age, she decides to cook up this plan well, let's fake date. And then that way her boyfriend can see that, oh, she's also moved on. But more importantly, the royal family and the people that, are overseeing the royal family can look at this matchup and say, oh yes, this is so much better for Princess Izumi. It's just gonna help her look good to be with him instead of her previous boyfriend in the eyes of the royal family and the royal committee or whatever they're called. And so she starts fake dating this person, and things progress. We start to learn more about her mom and how she feels about being in Japan and being back with her past love, and how she really feels about the royal family and the royal situation. So we get to really see into her perspective. We get to see more of Izumi's perspective of when she starts to make decisions that are really going to impact her. And one of those being, is she going to go to college? And if she gets accepted, is she going to actually go and start right away? And her other decision is, who does she want to be with? Because she clearly still has feelings that she thought she could put to bed, but clearly they're still there from her previous boyfriend. But now she's starting to actually really like the fake boyfriend. And so she has to make a decision on who she's going to choose to actually continue on dating and being with. And so these two, personal life and school life, she has to make these two big decisions. And so when I was reading this, in terms of the personal romantic relationship decision, I had who I was wanting her to choose in my mind. For me, I was like, you should just choose this person. It makes the most sense. But she ends up choosing the other person instead than who I wanted her to choose. And at first I was upset about that. I was like, come on, man, really? But then the more that I listened to the story, the more that it actually made a lot of sense. So good job on the author for changing my mind and making me agree with you. That, yeah, okay, fine. This actually is probably the best decision for her. This actually does make more sense than I was thinking. And it makes me feel a little bit better about other things that happen in the book too. So, I came around to the idea, but I'm curious if you've read these books, if you agree with the decision of who she chose to be with at the end, or if you were at first upset like me. So let me know if you've read it. But if you haven't read it and you are interested, because that's basically where this book ends, is her making these two big decisions and then being able to move forward with them. So if you think that the first book sounds interesting, then you should definitely just read the second book too, because they continue on so like effortlessly, like they flow together really well. There's not a huge time gap in between the two. It's only like a month or so. And so it kind of makes sense to just read them both because they go together so well. So if you do find this story matter, being a Japanese princess, and learning the ropes of that and living a new life in royalty and all that, then you should read the first one. And then if you think, okay, yeah, I did really enjoy that, then go ahead and read the second one. Anyways, that is all I'm going to say now. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.